The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Oh God, today we pray for all Minnesotans. We pray that we all feel safe and valued. Oh Lord, we pray for bountiful weather. We pray for spring winds and spring showers to bring forth growth, vegetation, and to help our farmers. Lord, we ask that you be with those who are tired, weary, grieving, hurting, those who are sick. God, also be with those who are joyful, those celebrating, and those who are close to your heart. God, be with us this day and every day. Give us your peace. Give us your calm. Lord, be with our students and help them to learn. Help them to reach their full potential. All this we ask you, Lord, and we pray to you, O God. Amen.
The chaplain for today is Reverend Eileen Woyan from Trinity Lutheran Church, Albert Lee, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members, when the Chief Clerk calls the roll today, please state your name, your location, and that you are present. Members using the remote voting technology, please also press the yes or green button to indicate that you are here. The clerk will take the roll.
Acom.
Acom, Minnetonka, present.
Acom, Minnetonka, present. Agbadge.
Agbadge, Minneapolis, present.
Agbadge, Minneapolis, present. Ecklund.
Ecklund, St. Paul, present.
Ecklund, St. Paul, present. Albright, excused. Anderson.
Anderson, St. Paul, present.
Anderson, St. Paul, present. Backer.
Backer, Browns Valley, present.
Backer, Browns Valley, present. Bahner.
Bahner, St. Paul, present.
Bahner, St. Paul, present. Barr.
Barr, East Bethel, present.
Barr, East Bethel, present. Baker.
Baker, Wilmer, present.
Baker, Wilmer, present. Becker, Finn.
Becker, Finn, Roseville, present.
Becker, Finn, Roseville, present. Bennett.
Bennett, St. Paul, present.
Bennett, St. Paul, present. Berg.
Berg, Rogers, present.
Berg, Rogers, present. Bernardi. Bernardi. Bierman.
Bierman, Apple Valley, present.
Bierman, Apple Valley, present. Bliss.
Bliss, Beltrami County, present.
Bliss, Beltrami County, present. Bow. Excused. Bolden.
Bolden, Rochester, present.
Bolden, Rochester, present. Burkle.
Burkle, Skagen Township, present.
Burkle, Skagen Township, present. Carlson. Carlson, St. Paul, present. Christensen.
Christensen, Stillwater, present.
Christensen, Stillwater, present. Daniels.
Daniels, Faribault, present.
Daniels, Faribault, present. Doubt. Doubt, St. Paul, present. Davids.
David, St. Paul, present.
David, St. Paul, present. Davney.
Davney, St. Paul, present.
Davney, St. Paul, present. Damuth.
Damuth, Cold Spring, present.
Damuth, Cold Spring, present. Detmer.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present. Drazkowski.
Drazkowski, Winona, present.
Drazkowski, Winona, present. Ecklund. Ecklund, St. Paul, present. Edelson.
Edelson, Edina, present.
Edelson, Edina, present. Elkins. Elkins, St. Paul, present. Erickson.
Erickson, St. Paul, present.
Erickson, St. Paul, present. Feist.
Feist, Minneapolis, present.
Feist, Minneapolis, present. Fisher.
Fisher, St. Paul, present.
Fisher, St. Paul, present. Frankie.
Frankie, St. Paul Park, present.
Frankie, St. Paul Park, present. Franzen.
Franson, Alexandria, present.
Franzen, Alexandria, present. Frazier.
Frazier, New Hope, present.
Frazier, New Hope, present. Frederick.
Frederick Mankato, present.
Frederick Mankato, present. Freiberg.
Freiburg, Golden Valley, present.
Freiberg, Golden Valley, present. Garofalo.
Garofalo, Farmington, present.
Garofalo, Farmington, present. Gomez.
Gomez, Minneapolis, present.
Gomez, Minneapolis, present. Green.
Green, Foston, present.
Green, Foston, present. Greenman.
Greenman, Minneapolis, present.
Greenman, Minneapolis, present. Grossel.
Grossel, Clearbrook, present.
Grossel, Clearbrook, present. Grunhagen.
Gruenhagen, Glencoe, present.
Grunhagen, Glencoe, present. Haley. Haley. Haley, St. Paul, present. Hamilton.
Hamilton Mountain Lake, present.
Hamilton, Mountain Lake, present. Hanson R.
Hanson R. Harmony, present.
Hanson R. Harmony, present. Hanson J. Hanson J. St. Paul, present. Hassan.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present. Houseman.
Houseman, St. Paul, present.
Houseman, St. Paul, present. Heinrich.
Heinrich, St. Paul, present.
Heinrich, St. Paul, present. Heinzman.
Heinzman, Nisswa, present.
Heinzman, Nisswa, present. Her. Her, St. Paul, present. Hertas.
Hertas, Greenfield, present.
Hertas, Greenfield, present. Hollins.
Collins, St. Paul, present.
Hollins, St. Paul, present. Hornstein.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present. Howard.
Howard, Richfield, present.
Howard, Richfield, present. Hewitt. Hewitt, St. Paul, present. Igo.
Igo, St. Paul, present.
Igo, St. Paul, present. Johnson.
Johnson, State Office Building, present.
Johnson, St. Paul, present. Jordan.
Jordan, St. Paul, present.
Jordan, St. Paul, present. Jurgens.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present. Keeler. Keeler, St. Paul, present. Keel.
Beal, Hammond Township, present.
Keel, Hammond Township, present. Cleveland.
Cleveland, Plymouth, present.
Cleveland, Plymouth, present. Cagle.
Kegel, Spring Lake Park, present.
Cagle, Spring Lake Park, present. Katiza, Wattoon.
Katiza, Wattoon, Eden Prairie, present.
Katiza, Wattoon, Eden Prairie, present. Cosnick.
Osnick, Lakeville, present.
Cosnick, Lakeville, present. Creeshaw.
Creeshaw, Little Falls, present.
Creeshaw, Little Falls, present. Lee.
Lee, Minneapolis, present.
Lee, Minneapolis, present. Liebling.
Liebling, Rochester, present.
Liebling, Rochester, present. Lilly.
Lily, North St. Paul, present.
Lilly, North St. Paul, present. Lippert.
Lippert, Northfield, present.
Lippert, Northfield, present. Lislegard.
Litzlegard, Yuma, present.
Lislegard, Yuma, present. Long, St. Paul, present. Lucero.
Lucero, Wright County, present.
Lucero, Wright County, present. Lewick.
Lewick, St. Paul, present.
Lewick, St. Paul, present. Mariani. Mariani. Markwart.
Markwart, Dilworth, present.
Markwart, Dilworth, present. Mason.
Mason, Egan, present.
Mason, Egan, present. McDonald.
Donald Delano, present.
McDonald, Delano, present. Mecklin.
Mecklen, Sherburne County, present.
Mecklin, Sherburne County, present. Miller. Miller, St. Paul, present. Moeller. Moeller, St. Paul, present. Moran.
Moran, St. Paul, present.
Moran, St. Paul, present. Morrison.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present. Mortensen.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present. Mueller. Mueller, St. Paul, present. Munson.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present. Murphy.
Murphy, Hermantown, present.
Murphy, Hermantown, present. Nash.
Nash, Carver County, present.
Nash, Carver County, present. Nelson M.
Nelson M., Brooklyn Park, present.
Nelson M., Brooklyn Park, present. Nelson N.
Nelson N., St. Paul, present.
Nelson N., St. Paul, present. New Brindley. New Brindley, St. Paul, present. Noor.
Noor, Minneapolis, present.
Noor, Minneapolis, present. Novotny.
Novotny, Sherwood County, present. Novotny, Sherwood County, present.
Novotny, Sherman Township, present. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, St. Paul, present. Olson B.
Olson B., St. Paul, present.
Olson B., St. Paul, present. Olson L.
Olson L. Duluth, present.
Olson L. Duluth, present. O'Neill.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present. Pulowski.
Pulowski, Winona, present.
Pulowski, Winona, present. Petersburg.
Petersburg, Wasika, present.
Petersburg, Wasika, present. Farr.
Farr, LeSueur, present.
Farr, LeSueur, present. Pearson.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present. Pinto.
Pinto, Brooklyn Park, present.
Pinto, Brooklyn Park, present. Poston.
Poston, Lakeshore, present.
Poston, Lakeshore, present. Pryor.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present. Quam.
Quam, Byron, present.
Quam, Byron, present. Raleigh.
Raleigh, St. Paul, present.
Raleigh, St. Paul, present. Rasmussen. Rasmussen, St. Paul, present. Ryer.
Pryor, St. Paul, present.
Ryer, St. Paul, present. Richardson.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present. Robbins. Robbins, St. Paul, present. Sandell.
Sandell, Woodbury, present.
Sandell, Woodbury, present. Sandsted.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present. Schumacher.
Schumacher, Laverne, present.
Schumacher, Laverne, present. Schultz.
Schultz, Duluth, present.
Schultz, Duluth, present. Scott.
Scott, Andover, present.
Scott, Andover, present. Stephenson. Stephenson, St. Paul, present. Sundin.
Sundin, St. Paul, present.
Sundin, St. Paul, present. Swazinski. Swazinski, St. Paul, present. Tice.
Tice, St. Paul, present.
Tice, St. Paul, present. Thompson.
Thompson, St. Paul, present.
Thompson, St. Paul, present. Torkelson.
Torkelson, Hanska, present.
Torkelson, Hanska, present. Erdahl.
Erdahl, St. Paul, present.
Erdahl, St. Paul, present. Vang.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present. Waslowick.
Oslowick, White Bear Township, present.
Waslowick, White Bear Township, present. West.
West Blaine, present.
West Blaine, present. Winkler. Winkler, St. Paul, present. Wolgamott. Wolgamott, St. Paul, present. Zhang Jie.
Zhang Jie, St. Paul, present.
Zhang Jie, St. Paul, present. Zhang T.
Zhang T, Maplewood, present.
Zhang T, Maplewood, present. Joachim.
Joachim Hopkins, present.
Joachim Hopkins, present. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, St. Paul, present. Bernardi.
Bernardi, New Brighton, present.
Bernardi, New Brighton, present. Mariani.
Mariani, present.
Mariani, St. Paul, present.
A quorum is present. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, we're going to have a brief recess for a statement from Representative Vang. I move a recess to the call of the chair.
Representative Winkler moves a brief recess to the call of the chair. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House is in recess. The member from Hennepin, Representative Vang.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to start off by saying that Daunte Wright, life mattered, and he should still be with us today. To Daunte's family, I'm so sorry that your son, brother, friend, dad will not be able to grow old with you and share his life with you. My thoughts are with you, and know that I have not rested and will not rest until we get justice for Daunte. Tragedy after tragedy has been piled onto our community, and it is beginning to crush us. It is difficult to overstate just how exhausting and deeply traumatizing the killing of a young Black boy is in this moment. So please understand that our community is hurting deeply as our soul mourns this tragic loss of life. While our present situation may be bleak, we at the legislature have the power to manifest a future which is bright and joyful in its celebration and protection of the lives of our Black and brown neighbors. Please know that while Daunte may fade from the news, he will never fade from my heart and the heart of my community. We will always remember Daunte Wright. We will always remember George Floyd. We will always remember Philando Castile, and on and on. These lives that have been taken from us will always be held in our hearts as they propel us to create a Minnesota where Black lives matter. I had hoped to share personal details about Daunte and his family, but things are moving very quickly and I was unable to get these important details. For now, suffice it to say that Daunte was human, he was loved, he was joyful, he was full of potential, and he will be greatly missed by all. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd like to say a few words, and then afterwards I would request that we have a moment of silence for Daunte Wright and his family. Madam Speaker, members, we are in an inflection point in our state, and I believe in this country. We're in the midst of a trial for Mr. Chauvin to hopefully right an injustice that has happened right here in our state. And at the same time, we lost Mr. Wright yesterday. We cannot continue to stand by and not change a system that does not have respect for the lives of our young Black men in this country and specifically in this state. I am calling on all of our members, DFL and Republican, no matter where you stand, no matter where you live, all four corners of this state and in the middle, we have a problem, and we have the power to address that problem. We're currently in session. We have weeks to go. We can take action, and we can do the right thing. It's within our sight, and we must act. We must be leaders on this. The world is watching. George Floyd's family is watching, and now Mr. Wright's family is watching as well. I'm imploring all of us to do what needs to be done. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, please join me in a moment of silence for Daunte Wright. The House will come to order. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 92nd session, 2021, 35th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Friday, April 9th, 2021.
If there is no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is any objection, if there is no objection, the motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail and the substitutions will be made. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of Senate files.
Second reading, Senate File number 1020.
Second reading. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction of first reading of House Files 2511 through 2514.
First reading House files 2511 through 2514. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate files herewith transmitted. Senate File number 524 and Senate File number 1470. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
First reading of Senate files.
First reading of Senate File number 524, an act relating to the State Building Code. Marquardt moved that Senate File number 524 and House File number 1015, now on the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Without objection, so ordered.
First reading, Senate File number 1470, an act relating to emergency powers. The bill is being referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. No, that one's okay. That one went to committee, no problem.
Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is House File 164. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 164, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to energy, the first engrossment.
I call on the member from Anoka, Representative Stephenson, to explain your bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. House File 164, the Energy Conservation and Optimization Act, or ECO. It modernizes and expands Minnesota's highly successful Conservation Improvement Program, also known as SIP. SIP is one of the nation's leading energy conservation programs. To date, the program has saved enough energy to power 100,000 homes annually. It has provided $6 billion in net benefits and supports 45,000 local jobs in every corner of the state. But SIP has not been significantly updated since 2007, and the energy landscape in our state has changed significantly in that time. This is a big bill, but at a high level, the bill first expands SIP to allow for energy savings that can be realized through load management and fuel switching. Second, it completes the transition from a program based on energy conservation spending to one based on actual energy savings. Third, the bill increases the conservation goal for our investor-owned utilities. Fourth, it doubles the support available to low-income customers of investor-owned utilities. And finally, it provides regulatory flexibility to our co-ops and munis. The really significant aspect of this bill is the incredible coalition that supports it. It has the support of all of Minnesota's investor-owned utilities, Xcel Energy, Minnesota Power, and Otter Tail Power, as well as all of our co-ops, munis, and G&Ts. Every single electric utility in the state supports this bill. It's also supported by the state's largest natural gas utility, Senator Point Energy. It's supported by the clean energy community. It has the support of consumer advocacy groups, such as the Citizens Utility Board. It has the support of labor unions, such as IBEW Local 292, and it has the support of business groups, such as the Minnesota Mechanical Contractors Association and the National Electrical Contractors Association, as well as some of the leading members of our corporate community. Incredibly, I have not listed, or really even begun to list, every single organization that supports this bill. While this coalition is huge, it's true that not everyone supports this bill, and I'm always trying to listen to those who aren't supportive and trying to address their concerns. I know that one group in particular has expressed some concerns is the propane industry. I've heard propane argue that the fuel switching provision in the bill will harm them. They claim that fuel switching is bad for Minnesota because, according to them, propane is cheaper and cleaner than Minnesota's electrical supply. Well, I have some great news for the propane industry. This bill is fuel neutral. It doesn't prefer one fuel over another. Fuel switching is only allowed if the switch saves money and decreases emissions. If propane is cheaper and cleaner, it won't be eligible for switching under this bill. In addition to the broad coalition of stakeholders supporting the bill, there's a broad collection of legislators working on it as well. Representative Ecklund has been a great partner on this bill, and I thank him for his efforts, as has Representative Garofalo, who has offered great advice and support here in the House. And I'm also pleased to be working with Senator Rarick in the Senate on this bill. Now, when you get a bill that's the product of negotiations between that many stakeholders, it's going to be the case that no one is completely satisfied with the bill, and that's the nature of compromise. If I was going to write a SIP reform bill, one that changed the program only in ways that I like, it would look different than the bill before you. The same would be true if Representative Ecklund drafted a bill that was entirely the way he wanted, or Representative Garofalo from his perspective, or Senator Rarick from his. But we've all come to the conclusion that we're not going to make the perfect the enemy of the good, especially since our definition of perfect is different. So members, I'm asking for your support for this compromise measure. Energy conservation saves money and creates jobs. It's that simple, and I'm happy to answer questions.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Swazinski moves to amend House File Number 164, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A6.
The member from Lyon, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think these mics haven't been used enough in this room. They're a little tough to get out of the... I move the A6 amendment. Members, the A6 amendment is pretty straightforward. It deletes the increase in the state energy conservation goal from 1.5 to 2.5. You know, it was talked a lot about that Representative Stephenson is listening to the concerns about this bill, and the Minnesota Chamber is against this bill. The Minnesota propane retailers is against this bill. And when you talk to business owners across the state, these changes aren't necessarily free. It sounds like, oh, these are going to lower the costs. These are going to do all these different things. But at the end of the day, mandates cost money. Goals become mandates, and mandates become goals. And it's estimated that, you know, millions upon millions of dollars have been spent in this program. And those dollars don't come out of thin air. It comes out of someone's bottom line. It comes out of a food manufacturer's bottom line. It comes out of an egg processor's bottom line. But it doesn't come out of other sectors of our bottom line. We've conveniently stripped out, and which I support, and I would actually support an expansion of the exemption of this bill to those high energy users across the state. Well, there's a lot of high energy users across the state. And I think it's premature to advance this bill as it moves forward. The companion to this bill has made some changes. When this bill last came before us, it was talked about that this bill it was a fine piece of legislation that couldn't be messed with. Well, it's been improved, and it's been improved. The companion bill deletes this section. I think this would put the bill in closer contact with that and help the process of the conference committee as it moves forward. And I would ask for your support on making it 1.5, or stripping out the 2.5 to 1.5, and ask for a roll call.
Representative Swazinski requests a roll call. Do I see 15 hands? There are 15 members in the chamber, so I do see 15 hands. There will be a roll call. The member from Anoka, Representative Stephenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I would ask members to oppose this amendment. This provision is an important part of the bargain reached between the various stakeholders on the bill, and I want to speak just a second to that and say that, you know, this bill was carefully negotiated by a lot of stakeholders with a lot of diverse viewpoints. And one of the things that I have been really consistent, Representative Swazinski even mentioned from last year, is saying, unless there's broad buy-in from the coalition, I won't support an amendment to the bill. And I have said that not just to my friends on the Republican side of the aisle, but I have said that to my friends to my left. I've said that to green groups and other groups that wanted changes. I've said, if you don't have the buy-in of the whole coalition, I'm not going to support the amendment. And that will be my consistent position. Was last year. It will be again this year. It's not the case that we never make changes to the bill. We did indicate that we would accept an amendment offered by Representative Bowe, who unfortunately couldn't offer it, but we would accept that. But I am asking for a no vote today.
Discussion to the Swedzinski amendment. The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. So I'm a little bit confused, Representative Stephenson, because in fact, the other body did adopt this change. And I know for firsthand and for certain that the other body's author of this bill, you said Senator Rarick, has been working very, very hard and has been achieving compromise. And yet this is in that version. And I'm really confused as to why you wouldn't adopt that here to show solidarity with that version in the Senate. I could tell you this, that if you were willing to accept this amendment, I might actually vote for your bill. So I'd ask you to reconsider your advice to your members. And if you would allow them to vote yes and put this on the bill, then you might have my vote. Thank you.
Further discussion to the Swedzinski amendment. Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. And just a reminder to folks, we've heard a lot about energy prices and its increase. And just kind of a rule of thumb when it talks about energy production, for every 1% of For every what's my numbers here? For every 1% of decrease in volume, so if we decrease the amount of electricity sold by 1%, it's estimated that we're going to have to increase cost up to 5%. So it does cost money, and it's oftentimes more than what you actually receive out of it when it comes as a percentage of cost per reduction. And members, we've got a lot of work to do here before the end of session. And, I think this potentially makes our job a little bit easier in the final weeks before the end of a session by putting this amendment on. And, we talked about broad partisan, broad coalition support. Well, a coalition is only built if you're invited in the room. And there are large swath of business owners, those mom and pop shops, those protein folks that have not been invited into this room. And that's our job today, is to represent those folks as well, too. So I ask for a green vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the A6 amendment. Those voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk please call the names of those who have not voted yet?
Baker.
Baker votes aye.
Baker, aye. Berg.
Berg votes no.
Berg, no. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Fisher.
Fisher votes no.
Fisher, no. Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Gomez, no. Grossel.
Grossel aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R, no.
Hanson, R, no. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Hewitt. Hewitt, no. Listlegard.
Listlegard, no.
Listlegard, no. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Marquardt.
Marquardt votes no.
Marquardt, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Nash.
Nash votes aye.
Nash, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson and I.
Nelson, N, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, no.
Pinto, no. Pryor.
Pryor, no.
Pryor, no. Ryer.
Pryor, no.
Ryer, no. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no. Wolgamott. Wolgamott, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 62 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Swazinski moves to amend House File Number 164, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A14.
Representative Swazinski, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. Under current law, the state is, under the PUC's guidance, is supposed to make sure that rates are 5% below the national average. And Minnesota used to have some of the lowest rates in the country. And there is a big difference between rates and utility bills. We'll hear that, some people's utility bills are some of the lowest in the country, but we're talking about rates, which is different. One of the unique things that we do here in the state of Minnesota and the way our market is really developed is we use propane, we use natural gas to essentially, we don't, like Texas's problem is they heat with electricity. Other parts of our nation heat with electricity. Minnesota, a vast majority of users heat with natural gas or propane. Essentially storing electricity in a tank a few hundred yards or a few feet from your home, or it comes out of a pipe from the ground. And that has really changed the dynamic of the way we do our business here in the state of Minnesota. And the A14 amendment is really straightforward, that now that we have learned in committee that we are ranked 13th highest in the nation. 13th highest, ladies and gentlemen, of electricity rates in the country. And we have a goal written in the law, and this will just help reinforce that so that we can get our rates back where they need to be so that our businesses and our consumers. And, one of the things that we talked a little bit about is the exemptions. And, under current law, the mines, paper mills, oil refineries are all exempt from this. And the Senate version, I believe, helps reiterate that and strengthen it. I think the language in this bill potentially puts those exemptions under threat. And if you believe in those jobs, in those communities, I think we need to make sure that we make a strong message and support this amendment. Thank you very much.
Discussion to the A14 amendment. Representative Stephenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll ask members to oppose the A14 amendment. I was really encouraged to hear Representative Swazinski talk to the chamber about the difference between rates and bills, because I think that that's a very important concept when we talk about energy. Rates, of course, the amount you pay per kilowatt hour, but bills are the amount of money that you actually send to the electric company. And so bills are what we should care about, because that's the money you're out when you have to pay your energy company. And while it's true that our rates have been climbing, our bills, as compared to the nation, still are below average. In fact, they're the third lowest in the Midwest. And a significant reason why is our leading energy conservation program. And let me give you one really concrete example. Members of the chamber will remember that during President's Day weekend, we had a huge spike in the cost of natural gas all across the country that sent rates soaring. Well, we had an emergency hearing of the House and Senate Energy Committees, a joint hearing shortly after that, and we posed the question to CenterPoint Energy, our state's largest gas utility: how much money did your consumers save during those 4 days by operation of the Conservation Improvement Program, the existing SIP program? And CenterPoint testified that it was $20 million that our residential consumers saved in just 4 days thanks to SIP. Conservation saves money by lowering our bills, and that's what's important. So I would ask members to vote against this amendment, and I would point out again that it's opposed by the coalition.
Discussion to the A14 amendment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no.
Aye.
The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Swedzinski moves to amend House Bill number 164, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A10.
Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The A10 amendment is an awfully straightforward amendment. We heard before Representative Stephenson say that it's going to be very difficult potentially for the fuel switching, and that maybe we shouldn't necessarily believe the people in the propane businesses that we hear from day in and day out. I've heard a lot from my propane dealers, and they are concerned, and they feel that everyone's interpretation is different. The coalition doesn't believe that they're under threat. But Madam Speaker, we've heard over and over through the same people that are in this coalition that they want to get rid of natural gas over time. They want to get rid of propane. They want to end emissions from the home when it comes to CO2 gas that are emitted by these furnaces, folks. Energy policy is a very complex puzzle. And the cornerstone or the corner piece often is the most important piece to any puzzle. And sometimes it's the first piece you find when working on one. And energy policy solutions and the rest, this bill and its expansion, whether it be the 1.5 to 2.5 mandate, whether it be the fuel switching standards, are not done. These are new things, folks. These are pitting a monopoly within your district against a mom and pop business, potentially. And by setting the stage, by building foundation on bills like this, when it comes to energy policy, it's not the first step. I mean, folks, we could literally pass the Democrat majority's energy policy verbatim, word for word, into law. And you know what we'd hear in 5 years? Not enough. The world is ending, and we can't stop it. We asked over and over and over, what's the impact on business? Well, sometimes we just need to do what's right, folks. And this amendment, I think, is really a poignant one, because I think it's not the first bite you take at the battle, it's the last bite you take of an apple that matters. You have some folks that eat it to the core, some folks that just eat the skin off, some people cut the skin off. Everyone eats an apple a different way, but I can guarantee you this is not the first bite at the apple. And if you support this bill today, you say, well, it really doesn't do what you say it's going to do, but we know where this truck is going. We know what the vision is for the proponents of this bill, and we know that they're going to eventually attempt to put these businesses out of business. And we want to make sure, with a strong vote, that we support this propane amendment, and I would ask for a roll call. Thank you.
Representative Swedzinski requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands in the chamber? There are 15 hands. There will be a roll call. Discussion to the Swedzinski amendment. Representative Stephenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd ask for members to oppose the A10 amendment. You know, I was struck by my friend Representative Swedzinski's comment that the coalition wants to get rid of natural gas. That I think would be news to CenterPoint Energy, the state's largest natural gas utility, and I think it would be news to Xcel Energy, which also sells natural gas. The truth of this is what I told you in the introduction. You don't have to take my word for it. Look at the bill itself. Look at the plain language that's in black and white that says that for a fuel switch to be authorized, it has to be cost effective and it has to result in reduced emissions. If propane is cheaper, if propane is cleaner, there will be no fuel switch. It's that simple. It's right in the bill. So I'd ask you to oppose the amendment. Let's not pull out one section of energy here, and let's honor what the actual bill says. Thank you.
The member from Pope, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I kind of perked up when Representative Stephenson said that this may in fact be good news for the propane folks because it may not be affected by the bill. If propane in fact produces a cleaner exhaust and saves money, it wouldn't be affected by this piece of legislation. So if that's the case, Representative, why don't you accept the amendment and exempt propane up front? Propane is an extremely important industry, helps agriculture in greater Minnesota, and we rely on it for corn drying in the fall, but that's just a short season, a couple of weeks, maybe a month if the weather stretches it out. But we need propane as a strong ally in industry year-round, and home heating is a big part of that. So it's an important facet of our life in greater Minnesota, and I strongly support the Swedzinski amendment and would urge that the propane be exempted, if in fact it would be anyway, Representative Stephenson, from your bill. So I support the Swedzinski amendment.
Any further discussion to the A10 amendment? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the A10 amendment. Members voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk call the names of those who have not voted yet?
Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Berg.
Berg, no.
Berg, no. Davids.
David's aye.
Davids, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, no.
Fisher, no. Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Gomez, no. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R, no.
Hanson, R, no. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Hornstein.
Ornstein, no.
Hornstein, no. Hewitt. Hewitt, no. Listlegard.
Listlegard, no.
Listlegard, no. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Marquardt.
Markward, no.
Marquardt, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, yes.
McDonald, aye. Nash.
Nash, yes.
Nash, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson and I.
Nelson, N, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, no.
Pinto, no. Pryor.
Pryor, no.
Pryor, no. Ryer.
Ryer, no.
Ryer, no. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no. Walgamot. Walgamot, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 62 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Swazinski moves to amend House File Number 164, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A9.
Representative Swedzinski to the A9 amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The A9 amendment is pretty straightforward. It deals with the subsidies that are given to electric car owners. And we've all heard about the impacts of utility rates on working Americans, the poorest of the poor, and how it's affected them, especially with this latest cold rush that we had in the state of Minnesota and across the nation. And I think it's pretty straightforward that you really have to, the way electric vehicles work is oftentimes you can go to work, plug in, at times free. But in other words, you also have a plug-in station at home. And utility companies have been essentially fuel switching by putting electric car chargers in people's garages. And this would just be very simple to target this to lower income folks that are trying to maybe save a buck or two or have someone else pay for their gas to go to work, and to keep utilities from subsidizing those installations and passing the costs on to other ratepayers if they have an income over $100,000 a year. Thank you. We have an
There's
amendment.
an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Swazinski moves to amend his amendment to House File Number 164, the first engrossment. The amendment to the amendment is coded A17.
To the A17 amendment to the amendment, Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. This amendment really ties in really well, I think, with the overall bill when it comes to the idea of fuel switching and with the idea of vehicles. And this would simply ban utilities' ability from cost recovery if they are fuel switching vehicles. So essentially, if they are going to be able to find savings and find capture when it comes to moving people from petroleum-based vehicles to electric-based vehicles, they are not allowed to cost recover that and pass the cost to other members. And I would appreciate your support. Thank you, Madam.
Discussion to the amendment to the amendment. Member from Hennepin, Representative Long, for what purpose do you rise?
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
State your point of order.
Madam Speaker, the amendment to the amendment is not germane under Rule 3.21 because it introduces a new subject, which is the purchase or lease of a motor vehicle.
Advice, Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Advice to the members. While it may introduce some new, it keeps some old. There is a lot of language in this bill that talks about fuel switching, whether it be fuel switching from electric heaters to gas heaters or the other way around. And this is pretty straightforward. An electric car is no different than an appliance that you'd plug in your wall. So folks, I don't believe that it actually introduces new portions. It simply helps develop the conversation into a more meaningful one that would potentially encompass the true meaning of this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I've had the opportunity to review the amendment and the advice of Representative Long and Representative Swedzinski, and I find the point of order is well taken. On the underlying Swedzinski amendment, discussion. Representative Stephenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I would ask members to oppose the A9 amendment. I think it's unworkable in the context of the current SIP program. It's not consistent with the way the program operates, and I also will note that it's opposed by the coalition. So I'd ask members to vote no on the A9 amendment.
Discussion to the Swedzinski A9 amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 164.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm wondering if Representative Stephenson would yield for a question.
He will yield. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Stephenson, you had mentioned that we had worked on this bill in the past and passed it off the floor, and you said that there were several changes made, and I'm wondering if you could just refresh my memory and tell me what's the difference between what we'd passed in the previous biennium and the bill before us now. I'm just not finding a whole lot of difference, and I'm wondering if you could help me out and tell me what those differences are. And I am truly undecided whether or not I'm going to vote for your bill at this time. I've spent a lot of time overlooking and looking at the Senate version of this bill, and I want to hear what you have to say about this part.
Representative Stephenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative O'Neill. The bill, when maybe I misspoke, what I certainly meant to communicate was that over the consideration of this bill, it has seen changes. I don't know of any substantial changes since the bill was last before the full body for a vote, so I don't know if that answers your question, but the bill has evolved over its lifespan, which, as I noted earlier, is much longer. But between our last vote on this bill, which I believe was in June mid-May of last year, and now, I don't think there's been substantial changes.
Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, that's more in line with what I remember, so I appreciate you pointing that out. Representative Stephenson, I'd like if you would yield for one more question.
He will yield. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Stephenson, I know that Section 2 is rather complicated in the bill, and it is something that's been opposed by some of the advocates, and I'm wondering if you could briefly explain what Section 2 does and what the opposition has been.
Representative Stephenson.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative O'Neill. Section 2 of the bill involves innovative clean technologies, and it allows for our utilities to try out new things. You know, I think a common theme when we talk about energy policy in this chamber, and I've heard multiple members speak to this effect, is that it's hard for us to know what will be coming down the pike in terms of technology. And I think I've heard Representative Garofalo in particular talk a lot about how different the energy landscape looks now versus what we thought was going to happen the last time we considered major energy legislation on the floor of this body back in 2007. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's important and why I have really iterated that we needed to have a fuel neutral approach in this bill, setting sort of the criteria that we want to measure and then moving forward. So innovative clean technologies section of the bill allows our utilities to have that forward-looking posture to find the next generation of energy technology that's going to be driving this industry forward.
Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Well, Representative Stephenson, I didn't really hear about what the concerns were or who was opposed to that, and I'm wondering if you could yield to that question and just let us know what some of the concerns were in Section 2 and who had the opposition or the concerns with those bills.
Representative Stephenson.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative O'Neill, I apologize. You're correct. I did not remember to answer that part of the question. I think that the concern that I've heard articulated is as to the cost of the program, and that's a consistent concern that we hear. But I would point out that I think that this bill more than pays for itself, that those innovations that we see in energy very often drive huge savings for consumers. So an example would be how wind energy has just dramatically fallen in price and has allowed for significant energy savings for Minnesota consumers over the course of the last couple decades. I look forward to similar advances in storage and other energy technologies that we're not even thinking about today, and those drawing savings for consumers down the road. So there's some investment on the upfront side, but I think that there's savings on the long-term side.
Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Stephenson. I appreciate that. So the concern was the costs involved, and I believe it was maybe the Minnesota Chamber that was opposed to it, and I believe are still opposed to that section, Section 2. I also have concerns with Section 2 and would hope that moving forward, I believe you have the votes to get this off the floor, but that you would work in conference committee, because I realize that this version is a bit different than the other body's version. And my concern would be to leave that in because of those cost concerns. And just to the whole of the bill, you know, this is something that's important for our co-ops and our municipals, utilities. It's been very, very difficult for them to comply with the SIP requirements. Now, I would probably just love to say, you know, get rid of the SIP requirements for them, because they certainly, after all this time, have a sense as to how to accomplish those things, and those are things that are of value to them and are important to them. Certainly is for the IOUs. conservation is incredibly important. I don't think that we need to mandate that to them, but that's not the bill in front of us. Unfortunately, the bill that's in front of us is to give them a little bit more latitude, and in that I can appreciate the bill. I do appreciate that there is additional things that they can include into the SIP program, and I appreciate that you've put those things in, Representative Stephenson. I just would really ask that you would take our concerns on the House floor here today and move it forward into conference committee. And as you work through the final version of this bill, really take those into consideration. Section 2 seems to be fairly problematic, so we would ask that, I wish we had an amendment to take that out, to be honest with you, but I no longer serve on the Energy Committee, so I did not bring that forward. Also, Representative Stephenson, we did offer an amendment to you, which I'm very disappointed that you did not accept, which was reverting back that 2.5% back to 1.5% on page 2, line 2.32. I think that's really important, again, when we're talking about a cost involved. I understand it's just a goal, but you know how goals turn into other things. But that seems to be pretty concerning as well. I'm still a little undecided what I'm going to do today, if I'm going to vote for this bill or not. It's, as Representative Stephenson said, it's essentially the same bill that we had back in May or June last biennium. And I'm much more excited with the version in the other body. I've spent quite a bit of time looking through that. So Representative Stephenson, I just really hope that you would work collaboratively and across the aisle to move those concerns forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in strong support of this bill. This is as broadly supported an energy bill as I think you're likely to find. And Representative Stephenson mentioned the hard work that has gone into this bill over many years of negotiation between a really broad group of stakeholders, and nobody got everything they wanted. I certainly would have loved to have seen this be even stronger on energy efficiency, but I respect an agreement, and I respect how hard it is to reach these agreements in areas as complicated as this. For cooperative utilities and municipal utilities in particular, this bill will provide increased flexibility to meet their energy efficiency targets. And you don't have to take my word for it. The Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association and the Minnesota Rural Electric Association sent out a letter to all of us that made clear, 1, it does not impose new mandates. 2, this grants flexibility for meeting conservation goals. And 3, this does not require anyone to change their preferred fuel choice. There's also been some question about, well, why do we have a conservation program at all? Why is energy efficiency needed? Well, it's needed because it saves us money. It's by far the lowest cost resource that we have as a state. It's a lot cheaper to save energy, to not use it in the first place, than to build new generation. And so why do we have goals? Well, we have goals because utilities don't have an incentive to produce less energy. Utilities want to sell more. So these goals are there for consumers to try to help them use less energy on their bills. And it has succeeded in doing that. According to the Minnesota Department of Commerce, every dollar invested in the Conservation Improvement Program has generated at least $4 in benefits from energy savings. And to date, the Conservation Improvement Program has provided $6 billion in net benefits to Minnesotans. There was some talk as well about the 2.5% goal. All of the investor-owned utilities are already meeting the requirements in this bill. They all support it, and they can all meet their goals with their current energy efficiency budgets. So if we're worried about costs, you don't have to worry. The utilities can meet them with their current efficiency budgets. The concerns over fuel switching that have been stated, this flexibility was requested by the cooperatives and the municipal utilities in particular to allow them some options with their efficiency programs. But as Representative Stephenson mentioned, any fuel switching project will be required to pass important cost effectiveness tests, and also will have to demonstrate clear energy savings benefits to their customers. Finally, I just want to mention the jobs benefits. We're at a time where we're still in an economic recovery. We still have a lot of folks who are sitting on the bench and who need work. And projects supported by energy efficiency are inherently local. These are electrical, heating, cooling, ventilation, installations. Over 45,000 local jobs, in fact, in Minnesota are supported by the Conservation Improvement Program. And that's one of the reasons I think we have such strong labor support for this program and for this bill. And efficiency projects also are shovel-ready. In the last economic downturn, the federal government stimulus answer was a Recovery Act. 1 in 8 of those federal dollars were for energy efficiency or renewable energy, because investing in these projects now will save consumers money and will also be stimulating our economy at a critical time. So I ask members to support this really broadly supported bill. Thank you.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I first of all like to thank Representative Swedzinski for some very well thought out amendments. I am disappointed that the propane amendment did not go on. I know there's some strong support out there for this bill. I'm kind of weak support for this bill. I'm going to vote for it, get it to conference, and hopefully some of these things will be taken care of, because there's some very important groups in the state that do oppose this bill, and I think we need to bring them to the table and see what can be worked out. So thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Chair Stephenson, and I hope that in conference committee some things can be worked out on this to make this a better bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Listlegard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in total support of this bill. Is it perfect? No, it is not. But for the author of the bill to work across the aisle, work collectively with all the different stakeholders to come to the best option that we have before us, I can't say enough, right? There's no such thing as a perfect bill. Perfection is subjective, but what's before us is something that moves us forward, and the leadership that Chair Stevens has showed is something that I totally respect, and I thank him for all the work working across the aisle with all the different stakeholders to get to where we're at today, and I fully support it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Lyon, Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. It's obviously an honor to serve in this room. We don't get back in here near enough. But, this amendment and this bill that's before us has been talked about over and over and over, have broad support. Well, folks, it doesn't. It has support in areas. But when you talk to the business owners in your districts, over the last 15 years, commercial rates are up 20 times the national average. Residential rates are, I think, 2.5 times. Electrical policy matters. I often think what we did, Representative Ecklund, I believe, carried this bill, the cooperative side and the municipal side last year. I think it had broad bipartisan support. A lot of folks looked at this and said, you know what, this makes a little bit of sense. Whenever we can give a little bit of ease to cooperatives, ease to the municipalities when it comes to energy policy in our state's a good thing. Did it pass individually? No. It got stuck with increased mandates, increased goals, new programs that cost millions upon millions of dollars. And sadly, it reminds me of another policy where the House DFL majority took something with broad bipartisan support. The PPP federal tax initiatives, the unemployment on the $600 a week that people received, and stuck it with an exceptionally controversial bill that not everyone supports. Well, I think everyone in this room would probably vote for the co-op and municipal portion of the bill. Obviously, you'd probably want to tweak parts of it. But you'd have an opportunity to have a win. This legislature, this Minnesota House, is lacking when it comes to wins. Putting bills to the floor for passage, putting bills that make a difference for Minnesotans. We have an opportunity to pass real tax reform, put businesses that are hurting because of COVID, and instead we're putting controversial electrical policy before the legislature that's going to increase rates that they don't agree with. I've often argued with the cooperatives. I said, why are you coming to the legislature and asking for a tweak? We passed here just a couple of years ago the cooperative empowerment, where we actually recognize locally elected officials that are local co-ops, electrical co-ops, as people with power. This bill doesn't do that. There are some cooperatives that would like to do 3.5%. And I believe they should be able to vote to do that. I believe there are co-ops that don't think they should have to do any of it. And I think those locally elected officials should be able to do that. This bill doesn't do that. It's kind of like the old adage, that little kid that would play in the park and say the only reason why the dog plays with him because there's a pork chop around it is because of what you did with the rest of the bill by increasing mandates, increasing costs on utilities that businesses don't want, businesses don't need. Businesses need the opportunity to thrive. They need the tax bills we've talked about to be passed. Unemployed people who are doing their taxes right now need that to be passed. The last thing we should be doing is ignoring business, ignoring coalitions of businesses that have real concern about their ability to compete, not only just in a tax environment, but also in an energy environment. I mean, the basis of this bill has an understanding that if you use a lot of electricity, you should probably be exempt from this because it's going to cost you a lot. This bill doesn't exempt agriculture. I would maybe reach out to those conferees that are going to be on the committee to add agricultural production, food production. Energy is a necessity. We don't want to go back to outhouses. We don't want to go back to walking. But we do need opportunity to do things cheaply and effectively. Our rates are up. While we say it's cheap relatively to everything else going up. And I would just ask this legislature to pause, to think, to listen. Representative O'Neill made a great point, one that I wish I had made first, but she beat me to it. The last time this bill hit the floor, what's changed? We heard from a lot of people that had concerns. But nothing changed. Very little. Maybe a couple of periods and probably some effective dates is about the only thing that have changed since the last time this bill hits the floor. That's not necessarily the way we could do things. We can do it better. So I'd make a plea to those folks across the aisle and to my own that this bill is not headed to the governor's desk. It's going to a conference committee. And I would personally argue that the other side has made some improvements and they can do more. But I would ask for a no vote today on this bill because it can only improve. And I know oftentimes we say something to our friends and neighbors back home and say, yep, I'll support that bill. This is not the bill as it stands alone. It's the pork chop. Thank you.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. Thank you, Representative Stephenson, for bringing the bill. The bill is reminiscent for me, Madam Speaker, of a bill that you had here nearly 10 years ago. And I remember discussing, Madam Speaker, you may be grinning underneath that mask you have on this afternoon, but I asked you about a solar garden bill that you had. I had never heard of solar gardens before, and I asked what you raise in solar gardens, and because I was aware of other things that were raised in solar gardens. And you couldn't come up with what was raised in solar gardens, and my response was then Representative Hortman, they raise rates in solar gardens, Representative. They raise rates. And Madam Speaker, Representative Stephenson and members, that's what happened. Our rates and Representative Stephenson, our electric bills have skyrocketed since, directly related to that bill and in the introduction of the liberal ideology into the energy pricing structure here in Minnesota. And Representative Stephenson, you left out the most important constituency group, the most and the biggest constituency group, and that's the people of Minnesota. You talked about the support that all of the campaign contribution wielding big energy companies and unions and others who are in front of you daily were pacified by the language you brought forward. But you brought it forward all at the time while you are bringing with this policy, like Speaker Hortman did back nearly 10 years ago, policy that is going to jack up the rates, and Representative Stephenson, the bill, the energy bill of the people of Minnesota, the consumers, the people, Representative Stephenson, who vote for you. The utility doesn't vote for you, Representative Stephenson, and neither do the unions. But they're the most active at the Capitol, the ones with your phone number on speed dial, and the ones in front of you most. The ones we forget here the most in the Minnesota House of Representatives are the ones who sent us here. And you're prepared with this bill to jack up their rates and their bills. You should take this bill, withdraw it, and send it back where it came from. Madam Speaker, members, please vote no on this bill. Let's save our constituents from yet another jacking up of their rates and their energy bills. It's going to make it even more expensive and harder for them to live in the state that we.
Representative Stephenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And, I think it is important to think about what the people of Minnesota want. And I think what those people, what they want is energy conservation. They want to save money. We know that because the programs that SIP operates are incredibly popular. They are used by people all across the state of Minnesota. They're not mandatory that consumers participate in these programs. No one's going to force you to get a home energy audit. No one's going to force you to get a rebate for your new insulation or your more efficient water heater. But Minnesotans choose to participate in SIP every day in large numbers. And that's why I'm able to tell the body that it has generated $6 billion in benefits, why it supports 45,000 jobs. The people of Minnesota value energy conservation, and they demonstrate with their actions, and they'll do it again if given the opportunity under this expanded and modernized program. The coalition that supports this is broad, but I also hear from constituents that tell me they want us to do something on energy. I also wanted to speak to Representative Swedzinski's point about commercial rates, and I want to tell the chamber that it's not just residential consumers. I told you before the example during the polar vortex. Residential consumers saved $20 million just in their gas bills because of SIP, while commercial industrial consumers saved $5 million during that same time just from CenterPoint. Everyone benefits from energy conservation, and it's one reason why businesses across the state support this bill. I was happy to hear from my friend Representative Lislegard because it reminded me of a saying that he says a lot that I kind of like. He says, don't trip over a dollar to pick up a dime. And when you think about this bill, think about that. Are there some costs in this bill? Yeah, but the savings, the benefits to consumers are so much greater. You got to look at the whole picture when making your decision. Don't trip over a dollar to pick up a dime. I'd like to remind my friends across the aisle that co-ops and munis want this bill. This is the bill they want, not a different bill. They have said so in communications to you repeatedly this year and last year, that this is the bill that they would like you to pass. And last, because I know there's at least one undecided voter in this room, or maybe not in the room, but appearing here, I do want to reiterate to the body that just as I have on this bill all the way through, just as I have on every bill that I work with, I am committed to working collaboratively and reaching across the aisle. That's the way that I operate on all of the bills I touch. It's the way I've operated on this bill, and it's the way I'll continue to operate as we go forward. So I'm asking for the chamber's support today. I'd ask for a green vote, and thank you.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk call the names of those who have not voted yet?
Baker.
Baker votes aye.
Baker, aye. Berg.
Berg, aye.
Berg, aye. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grassel.
Russell, no.
Grassel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R, aye.
Hanson, R, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Hewitt. Hewitt, aye. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, nay.
McDonald, no. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Nelson, N.
Nelson, N, no.
Nelson, N, no. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Ryer.
Pryor, aye.
Ryer, aye. Thompson.
Thompson, aye.
Thompson, aye. Wolgamott. Wolgamott, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 82 ayes and 50 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 609. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 609, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to state government, the first engrossment.
I call on the member from Hennepin, Representative Bahner, to explain your bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I do have an amendment, the A210170.
There's an amendment. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Bahner moves to amend House File number 609, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A21-0170.
Representative Bahner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. The A21-170 author's amendment adds some minor clarifying language recommended by Council. I have graciously accepted the Council's recommendation, which will allow that language to mirror that of Senator Curran's Senate File 353 and allow the House and Senate versions to be consistent. Members, I ask for a green vote.
Any discussion to the Bahner amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 609, as amended.
Third reading as amended. Representative Bahner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Primarily, House File 609 is a technical corrections bill for the statute in Section 16E, the statute which establishes MINIT, or Minnesota IT Services. The bill addresses recommendations made by the Office of the Legislative Auditor. It incorporates recommendations from the Governor's Blue Ribbon Council on IT, of which I am a member, as well as my colleagues Representative Nash and Representative Elkins, as well as Senators Ecklund and Curran, who serves as the bill's author in the other body. The bill has no fiscal cost, and it shares bipartisan support in the Senate and here in the House. I'll briefly outline the changes in the bill at a high level. While I realize that not all of the members of the chamber here today share my exuberance for technology scope and roles and responsibility, I will briefly outline them here, excuse me. The first thing that the bill does is it changes the legal name of Minute from the office to a department, consistent with departments that report directly to the executive branch. The new legal name change from Office of Minute Services to Department of Minnesota Internet Technology Services. It strikes obsolete and outdated language that is outside of the scope and mission of Minute. It solidifies the roles and responsibilities of Minute as a provider of technology services to the executive branch. It makes minor changes in project registration and reporting requirements that add more comprehensive, well-rounded view of a full IT project portfolio while adding greater transparency. The last change of note is that it also includes in the bill a provision that would merge the Governor's Blue Ribbon Council on IT with the existing TAC, or to change into the Technical Advisory Council, the new statutory advisory body setting in statute as the Permanent Advisory Council for Information Services and Advice to the state legislature. Madam Speaker and members, I urge a green vote on this bipartisan legislation.
The member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do support this bill. This is the culmination of a lot of work of the Blue Ribbon Council and has been vetted by both the Republican and Democrat members of the Blue Ribbon Council, in addition to the very many members of the private sector and the folks from Minute. So I do support this and encourage my colleagues to do as well.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to echo the comments of Representatives Bahner and Nash. This has been one of the most highly effective task forces that I have ever served with. And the changes in the form to change the technology committee to basically adopt the form in which the Blue Ribbon Council has been operating with a mix of both public and private sector officials will continue the effective work of this group. Thank you.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I am wondering if the author of the bill would yield for a quick question.
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Bahner, my question is, in the verbiage change from office to department, and hence, as I'm reading it here, it's included in the list of departments of the state. Does that mean then that the present organization of the office will have a commissioner if this were to pass into law when it is then a department?
Representative Bahner.
Thank you, Representative Lucero. Actually, it is actually a department, while not legally so, according to statute, and does in fact have a commissioner, Commissioner Tarek Tomes. That would not change under this new provision.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just one more question then, if she would yield.
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so, okay, so if the present leader in the current office has the title of commissioner, could you clarify if legally that the existing title would maintain of commissioner, but then would the authority of that lead person with the present title of commissioner change in its scope or authority in any capacity?
Representative Bahner.
Thank you, Representative Lucero. This bill does in no way change the scope or the roles and responsibilities of the Commissioner of Minute.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I won't ask any more questions, but I'm not entirely satisfied with the answer. And again, it's just a question for my own understanding. If having a department listed among the other departments, such as the Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Corrections, et cetera, if this in any way changes legally the definition of commissioner, does, for example, and I'm asking rhetorically now, would the commissioner presently the person with that title not having to be confirmed by the Senate with being added to this list, if this bill were to become law, does that commissioner now have to be confirmed by the Senate? And again, I'm haven't got the answer, but I won't ask to yield again. Just curious if that changes at all. But I appreciate this, Madam Speaker, and the bill author.
The member from Hennepin, the author of the bill, Representative Bahner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members. Just to reiterate that this bill does in no way change the roles and responsibilities or the reporting requirements of the commissioner. With that said, I just want to say a brief note of gratitude for all of the members of the Blue Ribbon Commission, as well as the legislative auditor for all of their hard work. I want to thank the private sector members of the Blue Ribbon Commissions. We have CIOs and high-level officers of each of these private companies that carefully review and vet some of the legislation that comes out of that committee. We also have been blessed to have members of the county, members of agency heads, and of course legislators from both sides of the aisle who work extremely collaboratively on this bill. I'm very proud to put forward this bipartisan legislation and proud of the work that we have accomplished. And with that, I would ask the members to vote green.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk please call the names of those who have not voted yet?
Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Berg.
Berg, aye.
Berg, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Davids.
Davids, no.
Davids, no. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grossel.
Ross, no.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Hamilton.
Hamilton, no.
Hamilton, no. Hanson, R.
Hanson R, aye.
Hanson, R, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Hewitt. Hewitt, aye. Igo.
Igo, no.
Igo, no. Lislegard.
Lislegard, aye.
Lislegard, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald. McDonald. Morrison.
McDonald, nay.
McDonald, no. Morrison.
Morrison, aye.
Morrison, aye. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson, and aye.
Nelson, N, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Ryer.
Pryor, aye.
Ryer, aye. Thompson.
Thompson, aye.
Thompson, aye. Wogelmott. Wogelmott, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 100 ayes and 32 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1913. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 1913, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to insurance, the first engrossment.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Elkins moves to amend House File number 1913, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A3.
Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The A3 amendment merely adds a data retention provision to the bill. It should go without saying that if you had a data breach, that you should retain the data. This makes it explicit.
Any discussion to the Elkins amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 1913, as amended.
Third reading as amended. Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners is the U.S. standard-setting and regulatory support organization created and governed by the chief insurance regulators from around the country. Although through the NAIC, state insurance regulators establish standards and best practices, conduct peer review, and coordinate the regulatory oversight. This process helps states adopt more uniform regulations and across the U.S. and also enables Minnesota-based insurance companies to do business in other states without having to seek certification in every individual state that they do business in. This bill addresses several high-profile data breaches of insurers and other financial institutions, which prompted NAIC to develop this Model Act to protect consumer information. The U.S. Treasury is recommending states adopt this model legislation to ensure insurance companies can address cybersecurity threats. This bill establishes data security standards for both regulators and insurers to help mitigate the potential damage of a data breach. This proposal requires insurers with 25 or more employees to prepare a plan to address data breaches, properly investigate cybersecurity events, and notify the Departments of Commerce or Health within 72 hours of a cybersecurity event that involves 250 or more Minnesotans, and also notify consumers if their information was compromised. 8 states have already adopted this model statute.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker. I'm wondering if the bill's author would yield to a quick question.
He will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Elkins. My question is on page 10 of the bill, line 10.27 and following. And it talks about consumer notification not being required if the event is resulting from a good faith acquisition of non-public information. And my concern there is I go back to a situation that was state related, but it was when MNsure was being ramped up, and several people's social security numbers and names associated with those were wrongfully breached out to some insurance providers, some agencies. And even though maybe at the time, and so in a private sector situation, even though at the time there was no nefarious activity going on, and that information was acquired, there's nothing to say to me that people should still be notified that their information was breached, simply because maybe at the time those employees, they don't do anything immediately on that breach data, but maybe they save that, and a year from now, they use that information to steal someone's identity. And to me, there ought to be some way of following up on on that so that in my opinion, I guess the consumer should know. The consumer should be notified regardless, because even if no immediate nefarious activity takes place, it could take place down the road. And if you don't have record of it, you may never know who the guilty person is. Do you follow me, Representative Elkins?
Representative Elkins.
Representative Scott, yes, I think I'm following you. So basically the provision you're talking about says consumer notification is not required for a cybersecurity event resulting from the good faith acquisition of non-public information by an employee or agent of the licensee for the purposes of the licensee's business, provided the non-public information is not used for a purpose other than the licensee's business or subject to further unauthorized disclosure. I'm not sure that the Minsure example would really be relevant. This is dealing strictly with commercial breaches, and I think this is. I think that the exception that's made here is in cases where there really isn't any real harm of risk of any harm coming to a consumer from an inadvertent internal disclosure of information to an employee who is actually working with the data and needs it to conduct their work.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure that I interpret it the same way, but I do have concerns about that section. And I don't know, I'm just of the opinion that anytime someone's data doesn't go where it was supposed to go, that the person should be notified. And I know that probably that would be a lot of notifications, but there has to be some way of tracing it back to an origin if something down the road happens with that data and a person's data is used for, identity theft or whatever. And I feel like this leaves the door open for that to happen. I'm still going to support the bill, but I have concerns over that section as I read it in its practical, in its black and white language.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And would the bill author yield for a series of questions?
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'll just start with where Representative Scott left off. And that particular scenario with the Minsure, I think it was 2013, 2014, around that time frame. And what happened there is that it was an email list, if I remember correctly. A list was emailed out by an internal employee to an external party, and it was not encrypted. And that information included PII, first name, last name, social security number, street address, things like that. And one of the things that I was just on a warpath at the time, and I still am, is here we have a brand new information system with the latest technology being implemented, and they can't even stop an email breach from data being sent out when the technology to detect and to encrypt such emails, either to stop or encrypt such emails, had been around for a decade and a half by that point, and they couldn't even do that. And so it was amazing, the royal flop there. But I do see here, and this is not one of the items that I picked up in my reading of the bill, so I appreciate Representative Scott bringing this to our attention, because I do see that. A good faith acquisition, well, that would have been an example of a good faith, right? So in good faith, the employee sent an email with an Excel or some other attachment that included PII, that the email itself was not encrypted. It was sent out in an unencrypted method, and therefore that is a data breach. And so the fact that it was done in good faith, it doesn't excuse or lessen the potential impact, but I'll leave that where it is. And just to be upfront, Madam Speaker and Representative Elkins, I appreciate your efforts in this, but I am not a member of the Civil Law Committee, the Judiciary Committee this term. I have been in the past. So I did not have the opportunity to review this with you in detail in the committees that I'm on. The only time I saw this was in Commerce, but it was a very narrow jurisdiction of which we were reviewing the language. So I appreciate your efforts. I think at the time I expressed then, and I'll express now, I am very skeptical when it comes to model language. In my 7 years here at the legislature, model language is very necessary, but it introduces a lot of redundancy, and it can unintentionally exclude a lot of stuff that should be included. And in my reviewing here, I see many examples of that. So I'm actually not going to vote for this bill, but the questions I'm about to ask you are not gotcha questions. I'm just trying to understand the model language that was taken and translated then obviously into Minnesota statutes. So Madam Speaker and Representative Elkins, the first question I would have for you is, and I've highlights all the way down here throughout the bill. And so just in no particular order other than the order of which they appear in the lines in the bill. On line 1.16, you define a cybersecurity event. Well, the common nomenclature in cybersecurity, as you're aware, as a technologist, database administrator, I believe, yourself, you're aware that the common nomenclature is event versus incident. And so here we have the first example of model language, in my opinion, not the best of use that it could be. And so I think that we should define this as an incident, because that makes it very clear and lines up with the standard nomenclature in the field. But then when you read down the line, the definition of what a cybersecurity event is, and it means an event resulting in unauthorized access to or disruption or misuse of an information system or non-public information stored on an information system. Well, what about non-digital access? Representative Elkins, in this bill here, is there information that in all other aspects would be in scope, except for if it's not digital, if it's a printed copy, like a printout, or if it's on somebody's screen, faxes, pictures to that effect, so tangible evidence or information, I should say, that's not digital. Would that be in scope of this language here?
Representative Elkins.
So thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Lucero. So I think one thing to keep in mind with legislation of this nature is that insurance companies operate in two dimensions. They're insurance companies, but typically they're also either healthcare companies offering health insurance or financial services companies, also subject to federal regulation under Graham-Leach-Bliley. And I think you need to look at the total, the web of security legislation that these companies can be subject to. So in the example, let's go back to the MNsure example for a second. A breach in MNsure wouldn't be covered under this because it's data in government's hands, and it would be governed by the Minnesota Data Practices Act. If a breach of information related to health information would be subject to both this bill and HIPAA. And the example that you cited would be a violation under HIPAA and would have to be reported under HIPAA. The same thing with a financial company offering life insurance or annuities. If there was a breach there, they would be subject to both this act and to the federal requirements under Graham-Leach-Bliley. So the answer basically is no, that this bill isn't going to cover every single situation that any insurance company in any vertical would face, but it covers things that would be applicable to any insurance company as an insurance company.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And would the bill author yield for another question?
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Elkins, so you're saying there is redundancy here, and you're absolutely right. Having worked for an insurance company, medical insurance company in the past, yes, they're absolutely subject to regulatory requirements, HIPAA and high tech. I worked for a medical device manufacturer in the past, and that was obviously the same thing, subject to HIPAA and high tech. Financial institutions, yes, Graham-Leach-Bliley Act for sure. And then, one you didn't mention, any U.S.-based publicly traded company is obviously going to be subject to Sarbanes-Oxley. But then again, what I'm going back to my first point was, when it comes to model language, whenever we as legislators are given model language, we need to be very thorough and diligent to not create overlap, to not unnecessarily create exclusion of some items, to not create new definitions or the same definition but a different term, right? I think it's our responsibility as legislators to make sure to eliminate all of this extra white noise that we are looking to put into Minnesota statute. And I'm not convinced that's been done here. Again, I'm not saying it's a dig on you at all, but just more work can be done here to make this more efficient. So the next question I would move down to is on line 3.4, any information or data except age or gender in any form or medium. Okay, so now this relates to my second question I asked, which was the form, if it's physical. So in your earlier definition of cybersecurity event, information system, information security program, and then non-public information, you're citing electronic information, but then down here you're saying any form or medium. And so there's you're in one area you're specifying digital form, but then in another area you're specifying in any form or medium. And here's an example. So my question for you, Madam Speaker and Representative Elkins, on line 3.4, why are you excluding age and gender from information that would be categorized as non-public information?
Representative Elkins, and Representative Elkins, if you can speak directly into the microphone and speak a little louder, a few members are having difficulty hearing you. Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Lucero. I think everything that you're discussing would be covered under HIPAA.
Representative Lucero.
Okay, Madam Speaker, so if everything that I'm discussing, which is directly from this bill, is covered in HIPAA, this I think makes the point I'm trying to make here is a lot of this is redundancy. And I think we need to be more narrow in scope in what we're targeting rather than just throwing out a bunch of new statute that may already be covered. And as we go down the line of questioning here, there is more stuff that I'm not entirely confident isn't already in other areas of Minnesota statute. The HIPAA citation that Representative Elkins just gave would obviously be federal, but that doesn't persuade me to voting green on this. And I would like to vote green. I'm not, again, these are not gotcha, it's just points of clarification. I think that we could probably do better with the model language here. So he didn't answer why is he excluding age and gender in his language. He didn't answer that, but I'll move on to the next one if he would yield for another question.
Representative Elkins.
Yes, is there a question?
I hadn't asked it, I was just wondering if he would yield again.
Oh, there was okay, I'm sorry.
Yes,
there was a pause, which I interpreted as the conclusion of the question. Representative Lucero, he will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Elkins. So Representative Elkins, as we are aware, in the technology or cybersecurity industry, we are trying to protect the CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Those are the goals that we're trying to maintain. And so with that in mind, when I look at line 4.14, I see that you're only interested in two of those, which is security or integrity. And you're leaving off one of them. Again, here's another example where we could clean up the model language a little bit to be more specific to what we're doing. And then on line 4.12, security and confidentiality. Again, so you're making a reference to confidentiality and integrity in different aspects of this. In one spot you say security and confidentiality, and the next line down you say security or integrity, right? So again, more work needs to be done on this language, Madam Speaker. So then when I go down to line 4.29, so this is in the topic of risk assessments. I see assess the sufficiency of policies, procedures, information systems, and it goes on. But I'll draw specific attention to policies and procedures. Well, Madam Speaker and Representative Elkins, we know in the cybersecurity industry that the 4 documents that we are tasked with either creating or enforcing are the following: policies, standards, procedures, or guidelines. And in your particular language here, you're only referencing policies and procedures. And so you're missing standards, which would be the biggie. Standards would absolutely be something that would be involved in any risk assessment evaluation. So my next question is, Madam Speaker, why is Representative Elkins, which he already said to be yield, why is he not interested in evaluating the standards by which an information security program is built as part of a third party or other risk assessment?
Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Lucero. Representative Lucero, this bill, as I read through it, this is an agency bill, comes to me through Commerce, but as I read through it, what I saw is basically a best hits of data security language drawn from a wide range of related acts, including HIPAA, Grahams-Leach-Bliley, those would be the main ones. And you cannot, when you're doing that, when you're, regulating for an industry across multiple, vertical lines, it's impossible to completely conform with any of the language that is in the particular bill, the federal bill that governs that vertical line. There are differences between HIPAA and Grahams-Leach-Bliley. Sometimes they're very subtle, but when the people who put this model ordinance together did so, they did their very best to try and acknowledge those differences in the overarching federal statutes that this bill also has to conform with. And, I think they did a pretty good job. This bill has been thoroughly vetted by all of the health plan, the health insurance companies, the financial insurance companies, the property and casualty companies. None of them, nor any of the data privacy advocacy organizations, have expressed these kinds of concerns as the bill has gone through the committee process.
Representative Lucero.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Elkins. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't get addressed or have concerns expressed by all kinds of advocacy groups, but we as legislators, we find details that are overlooked by a multitude of committees. One of the greatest people that I think can nitpick, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, no, it's a positive way, one who has an eye for extreme detail is Representative O'Neill. And she is one who can find wording, because words matter, that have been overlooked by a multitude of organizations, lobbying groups, or committees, right? So just the fact that nobody else has expressed concern, and I'm the first one who's pointing out glaring holes in your language, doesn't make it any less a concern. So I hope that wasn't where you're going. But Madam Speaker, would he yield for my next question?
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker and Representative Elkins, you just cited a bunch of industries. Those that are subject to HIPAA, those that are subject to high tech, and a bunch of others in the list that you just produced. Every single one of those industries, in order to implement security controls, we develop, those of us professionals in the industry, we produce policies, standards, and procedures. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Those documents are agnostic to the industry. They are agnostic to the technology controls in place to protect information, whatever form it's in, digital or physical. And I've already pointed out how you have glaring holes in the information being physical. I could take, you make a reference to 250 names being the threshold. Well, if somebody prints out 251 names that include their address, social security number, and date of birth, and they leave it on the copier, or they leave it on their desk unsecured, and the cleaning crew comes in and takes that, that's a data breach. But it was a physical copy, not a digital copy. That's why I asked you the question, why are you only having digital in scope? Because I was trained as a security professional in the medical industry, the medical insurer, which I worked, that a printout is and left in an unsecured area is just as damaging to those whose data is compromised, because that can be taken and then used and abused. Okay, so then I'm now to this point on line 4.29. In fact, I would draw members' attention, if you still have it, I still have the previous bill that we just looked at and passed. This would be HF 609, the one I voted against. If we look at line 4.4 and 4.5, we would see that there's a reference, it's existing language, existing statute makes reference to standards and policies. So clearly standards are important. So my question for Representative Elkins, the fact that standards are agnostic and the fact that you want to perform a risk assessment, how can you possibly perform a sufficient risk assessment without examining the standards documents?
Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Lucero. You know, the bill, as well as the related federal statutes, Grams-Leach-Bliley and HIPAA primarily, do require that the company governed by this develop those kinds of standards. But, you know, Representative Lucero, these are all questions that you could have asked me in the Commerce Committee, and which would have been a much more appropriate place to ask those questions, because we could have actually taken steps to address them. But I've also worked for insurance companies in healthcare and in financial services, and I have taken both HIPAA training and Grams-Leach-Bliley training several times. There are significant differences among them. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to go through, in some cases, both a Grams-Leach-Bliley class and a HIPAA class in the same year. I'll leave it at that, Madam Speaker.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, Representative Elkins, let's talk about the Commerce Committee. I was shut down on the Commerce Committee numerous times. Not only myself, other Republican members. We were shut down, cut off, limited debate, and told to essentially shut your mouth. Okay, that was the experience on the Commerce Committee. And so when I tried to ask you questions, Madam Speaker and Representative Elkins, if you would remember, the chair of the Commerce Committee, he said, let me remind members of the committee, we're being very narrow in scope. All right, so Representative Elkins, Madam Speaker, Representative Elkins, I made an attempt to discuss other concerns I had with this bill, but I was shut down by the Democrat leadership, which again was the process that we've had to endure, being the recipients as the Republicans this entire time in the session so far. But again, you're not, Madam Speaker, Representative Elkins is not answering the questions. Standards, you know, yes, you keep referencing HIPAA and high-tech, but look at your own bill. It's subdivision 3, beginning on line 4.19. You're talking about risk assessments. Risk assessments. So you are requiring a risk assessment be performed. It doesn't matter that there's additional regulatory compliance mandates from federal or state requirements. You are requiring a risk assessment be performed. And as part of that risk assessment that you want performed, you are missing standards. Look at it right there. It says policies and procedures. You're missing the standards documents, which are, they are incredibly important for any information security program. So you continue to cite these additional regulations as a way, I think, to distract, and I'm not trying to, these are not gotcha, it's just, I don't think this language is ready for prime time, and I would hate for it to pass in this form. I won't ask to yield anymore, I'll just point out some of the other glaring holes. Let's see. When I look at line 9, beginning on line 9.1, which is section 4, you make a reference to a criminal investigation. Actually, that's line 11.2. So drawing your attention to 11.2, are there any requirements that, I guess this is rhetorical at this point, there's nothing in here. You are saying that the commissioner can share this information or share with other parties, but you have no requirement that there's a protection around it. So you're empowering the commissioner to share information without the requirement to protect it. And how would it be protected? Is it existing systems? You want information shared up to the commissioner and their department, but is it going to be stored in existing systems? What are the controls around it? How are they empowered and what are they empowered to do around it? Looking at line 13.10, the Commissioner of Commerce and Commissioner of Health may take action that is necessary or appropriate. I hate the word appropriate in statute. What does that mean? What exact action are you empowering these commissioners over our private industry? You're empowering them to take action that's appropriate. What does that mean? Be specific. You can be specific. You should be specific. When you look at 11.3, the commissioner actually started 11.2. The notification may be delayed to a certain date if the commissioner determines that provided the notice impedes a criminal investigation. Does the commissioner have the authority to supersede other state statutes in this regard? So if there are other state statutes that might be in scope or in play with what you've termed as a cybersecurity event, and they have their own notification requirements, does this proposal that you have that begins on line 11.2 through 11.3, that the commissioner can delay the notification? Well, what happens to the other parts in statute that might be in scope? Does this prevail, or does the other prevail, or does it create a conflict that we now need to send to the courts to resolve, right? And this is a great example where we should be clarifying and making certain that we understand exactly what to do in this. When I look at, here's a glaring hole. So when I look at 9.18, you make a reference, any consumer residing in this state. Well, compare that to your definition of consumer. Consumer means any individual, et cetera, who is a resident of the state. Well, being a legal resident of the state, and then as you term it here on line 9.18, residing in the state, that those are two different things as far as I understand. Being a resident of the state is having an address, a permanent address, having, obviously it's where you vote, and having identification as such. But residing in the state, I could be a snowbird and I might be residing here, but this is not my residency. I might live here for 5 months out of the year. Well, am I in scope or am I not in scope? Because according to your definition, you're saying that who is a resident. Here you have conflicting language now saying somebody is simply residing. But then earlier in that same paragraph on line 9.7, you make references to this state is the licensee state of domicile. In the case of an insurer, the licensee's home state. In the case of a producer, and then you have a comma, and then it says, as those terms are defined in Chapter 60K. Well, I looked up Chapter 60K. I wanted to know exactly how are these terms defined? What is the definition of state of domicile, the legal definition, if we're going to make a cross-reference? The definition to licensee's home state, a producer, right? Because producer is not even in your list of definitions. So what is the definition of these things, including producer? Well, lo and behold, I looked up 60K, Madam Speaker, and I don't see any of these definitions, right? I went to the definition of terms in 60K, and I don't see these things. So we're making a cross-reference, and I'm not exactly sure. 60K is a large chapter. As members know, I mean, that's the top level, 60K. We can be more specific. We can be refined. We have the option to do this right. And again, members of the committee, such as myself, were just shut down when we tried to highlight these aspects. Then we have, it just goes on and on. I've got so much here. Look, I mean, look at this is just one page of stuff. And we can and should do better. And Madam Speaker, you know, I can keep going on and on. I probably should, to highlight how this is not ready for prime time. So, Madam Speaker, I guess at this point what I would do is I don't want to kill the bill. I think we can move it forward. I think we can do so after we've cleaned up this language, tightened it up, made sure there aren't conflicts in these different definitions, conflicts with the existing statute. So, Madam Speaker, at this point, I would actually make a motion to lay this bill on the table.
Representative Lucero makes the non-debatable motion to lay the bill on the table. Hold on just 1 second. Seeing no permissible discussion, all those in favor of the Lucero motion, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion does not prevail. The bill is before us. Any further discussion to the bill?
I will finish it up, Madam Speaker.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just love these roll call votes over Zoom, completely, not roll call, voice votes over Zoom, completely meaningless. But I appreciate, Madam Speaker, your ability to listen with a keen ear, trying to discern the yeas from the nays over Zoom. But members, again, it's not my intent to be gotcha. It's not my intent to kill this bill. I think there is a great opportunity to move forward. But one of the things that I learned, I think it was from Representative Erickson. It's been a number of years now, but it was when I was a first-term member. And one of the objectives that was impressed upon me, and I'm giving kudos to Representative Erickson, and she may or may not have been the one who told me, but somebody in my first term gave me the good advice of, Eric, we don't need to pad state statute. The objective should be to minimize state statute, not have redundancy, not have duplicative definitions, where possible to cross-reference, use existing statute, because that is the cleanest and most efficient form of law in the state of Minnesota. That is the antithesis of what's happening here. This is padding state statute. It is inefficient. There's duplication. There's conflicts, I think, within the very own bill, as I pointed out, just a few examples. Members, I would highly encourage a no vote at this time, allowing Representative Elkins to further refine the language. Thank you.
Was that a question, Representative Lucero? That was a conclusion.
It was a conclusion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, in conclusion, I would say that this model ordinance has to be passed if Minnesota-based insurance companies are going to be able to retain their ability to do business in other states without having to go through the individual certification processes in each of those states. The purpose of having these uniform acts that extend across states is that it's a reciprocal agreement, and under this reciprocal agreement, we honor the certificates that have been issued by the home states of other insurance companies, and they do the same for us. The U.S. Department of Treasury has strongly urged states to adopt this bill. Already 8 of them already have. We would be the 9th, and it needs to pass this year. So members, this is a necessary bill. I would urge you to vote green.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members, please vote. Will the clerk please call the names of those who have not voted yet?
Baker.
Baker, no.
Baker, no. Berg.
Berg, yes.
Berg, aye. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, no.
Franzen, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grassel.
Grassel, no.
Grassel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Hamilton.
Hamilton, no.
Hamilton, no. Hanson, R.
Hanson, R, aye.
Hanson, R, I. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, I. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Hewitt. Hewitt, I. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, I. Mariani. Mariani. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, I. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, I. McDonald.
McDonald, nay.
McDonald, no. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Nelson, N.
Nelson N, no.
Nelson, N, no. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, I. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, I. Ryer.
Ryer, aye.
Ryer, I. Thompson.
Aye.
Thompson, I. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, I. Wolgamott. Wolgamott, I. Mariani. Mariani.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 82 ayes and 49 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 659. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 659, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to construction codes, the first engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 659.
Third reading. I recognize the member from Kuchiching, Representative Ecklund, to explain the bill.
Thank you, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Senate File 659 ensures that approximately 70 manufactured home installers are able to secure the necessary 12 hours of continuing education to renew their state licenses through an online or internet course option. Minnesota has seen a decline in installers over the last several years, and part of the problem was securing the mandated continuing education requirements. Manufactured homes are Minnesota's largest source of non-subsidized workforce housing, and it is critical that this concern be addressed. Senate File 659 provides an exception to Minnesota Statute 326B.0918. It will allow the installer continuing education courses to be offered online or through the internet with the approval of Department of Labor and Industry, and is sponsored by a Department of Labor and Industry approved course sponsor. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry retains its authority to evaluate and approve courses and course sponsors. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I ask for your support for House File 659, and I will stand for questions.
Any discussion to the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members, please vote. Will the clerk please call the names of those who have not voted yet?
Baker.
Baker votes aye.
Baker, aye. Berg.
Berg, aye.
Berg, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Fisher.
Fisher votes aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franzen votes yes.
Franzen, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grossel.
Aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hamilton. Hamilton. Hanson, R.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, R, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Hewitt. Hewitt, aye. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Mariani. Mariani. Markwart.
Markwart, aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson and I.
Nelson, N, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Ryer.
Ryer, aye.
Ryer, aye. Thompson.
Thompson, aye.
Thompson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Wolgamott. Wolgamott, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Mariani.
Excused.
Mariani, excused.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we will take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Announcements. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 10:30 a.m. Tuesday, April 13th, 2021.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 10:30 a.m. Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no.
Aye.
No.
The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until 10:30 a.m. Tuesday, April 13th, 2021.